Well, one often hears the phrase good times create weak men as an explanation of how beta males, like Keir Starmer, Anthony Albanese, and Emmanuel Macron, wound up occupying positions in society traditionally reserved for alphas. But have you ever wondered how that process actually works? Well, YouTube clinical psychologist Orion Taraban has worked it out based on a fascinating episode of Survivor, in which all the female residents on the island were pitted against the males. The women immediately realised they didn't stand a chance against the men who were not only physically superior but also formed themselves into a hierarchy with the most capable men calling the shots and the others happily accepting their place in the lineup, as men naturally do in sporting teams and so on. So the women did something cunning. They told the beta males that they were mere pawns in the alpha's game and would be discarded as soon as their usefulness was exhausted. By flirting, they were able to convince the betas to form an alliance with them instead, and the alphas were soon outmaneuvered and defeated. The key point, says Taraban, is that this only happens in social situations where women compete for male roles. In societies where men and women complement each other, as in when women nurture while men provide and protect, such measures are no longer necessary. Oh, and one other minor point. The beta males copped it in the neck anyway. The vague promise of unlikely sexual gratification was withdrawn just before the women voted the blokes out too. Well, all well and good, I hear you say, but Albo, Macron and Starmer are not the type of men who can be seduced by vague promises of sexual benefits from the women around them. For a start, those women are, well, about as likely to seduce a male colleague as Robert F. Kennedy is to sing the title role in Don Giovanni. Besides, all three of those men are, for all intents and purposes, already married, two of them to actual women. But that's not the only reward on the table in this globalist version of Survivor. In fact, the lower down the male hierarchy you go, the less sex can be used as a bargaining chip. But other, even more prestigious rewards take its place. For one, you get to fly around the world on a private plane, meet other members of the international cabal, wear a stupid hat to the Pope's inauguration, and tell the Pope how proud your mum would be of you right now. To keep his alliance intact, all Albo needs to do is ensure half or more of his cabinet is female, throw billions of dollars at the childcare industry so that no other women are cruelly trapped at home caring for their own children, and avoid forming any alliances with whichever alphas are left on the geopolitical scene and might intimidate the womenfolk. So Albo's first priority when he landed in Rome last week was to meet European Commission boss Ursula von der Leyen and promise to join her alliance, ensuring that the war in Ukraine is as long and catastrophic and profitable for the arms industry as possible. This was his effeminate way of flipping the bird at Donald Trump, the alpha male the sisters love to hate, who at that very moment was trying to negotiate peace in Ukraine. But there's more to this than just an alliance. It also brings with it an entirely new style of politics, which Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney demonstrated brilliantly yesterday. Let's watch.
Climate change is an existential threat. We all recognize that. There's increasing urgency around that. But the converse of that, the flip side of that is if you're taking steps, making investments, coming up with new technologies, changing the way you do business, all in service of reducing and eliminating that threat, you're creating value. And what we have seen increasingly, spurred initially by the Sustainable Development Goals, accelerated with Paris, and then through social movements and others and governments acting, is society is putting tremendous value on achieving net zero. So the companies and those who invest in them and lend to them, who are part of the solution, will be rewarded. But those who are lagging behind and are still part of the problem will be punished.
You will be punished. For all their other qualities, women have turned feelings, especially the feeling of fear, into political weapons, which they wield like their predecessors wielded rolling pins on drunk husbands coming home late from the pub. So the fear of climate change, which may or may not even exist, becomes more than a fear. It is an existential threat. And it requires us to commit to net zero. Companies that comply with that, says Carney, get to feel all good and cuddly, while those who don't will be punished. You'll notice that at no time did Carney or any other proponent of the climate hoax promise to change the weather in the future. They don't have to. Specific outcomes are not their forte. All they really want is to reward everybody who joins their fraternity and punish those who don't. Because, you know, not joining their fraternity is just totally nasty and selfish. Taraban says alliances between beta males and women are only temporary, and eventually the alpha males return to power because that's just the natural order of things. Well, that's how it works normally anyway. But if the Daily Mail is correct and Albanese has been flooding Australia with Labor voting migrants, then we might be stuck on this island with these beta leaders forever.